In 2007, surveillance cameras captured a 24-year-old guy walking down College Street to a pizzeria. No one saw him leave the establishment, and he never appeared in the field of view of any cameras in the city again. 13 years later, we still don't know what happened to Kyle Fleischmann that night. This story took place in Charlotte, North Carolina, a modern, beautiful, multicultural city that captivates with its southern charm. But just a few blocks away, on the other side of this bridge, lies a dangerous, grim park, where one might encounter members of the most violent and rapidly growing street gang in the world. Kyle was born on September 24, 1983, to Dick and Barbara Fleischmann. Kyle was the couple's first child, and he has a younger brother and sister. The family moved to Charlotte in 2000 due to Dick's job at Fidelity Investments. Kyle attended the local Charlotte Catholic High School, and in 2006 he graduated from Elon College with a degree in business administration. When his mother was diagnosed with breast cancer, he promised her they would fight the illness together. He loved his mom and supported her up until his disappearance. Therefore, everyone who knew him is convinced he couldn't have disappeared of his own free will. On November 8, 2007, Kyle, his mom Barbara, and his sister Noel gathered at the house of Kyle's best friend, Daniel Scagnelli. The four of them went to a stand-up comedy show by Dane Cook. They wanted to lift Barbara's spirits before she had to undergo some unpleasant procedures. They planned to have a few drinks and didn't want to drive home in that condition, so they took a taxi. After the show, Barbara and Noel went home, while Kyle and Daniel decided to continue the evening at a local bar. They headed to Buckhead Saloon in downtown Charlotte. According to Daniel, Kyle behaved as usual throughout the evening. The young men ordered strong drinks at the bar, but Daniel had to work the next day, so around 1 a.m. he was ready to go home. He saw Kyle talking to a girl, but still checked if he wanted to leave or stay. Kyle replied that he would stay at the bar for a little longer because he had met some nice people and wanted to chat with them. This wasn't unusual behavior. Kyle was very sociable and got along with everyone he met, his friend recalls. Daniel insists that when he left the bar, Kyle wasn't overly intoxicated and was having a great time. Daniel thought his friend would be fine and went home. However, that night, Kyle apparently had a disagreement with someone. Surveillance footage in the bar captured a verbal altercation between Kyle and 2 or 3 men. They were friends of the girl he had been talking to. The argument didn't escalate into anything serious, but the video shows the guys exchanging a few harsh words. Shortly after this, Kyle left the bar just before it closed, forgetting his jacket and bank card. He left around 2:20 a.m., and although it was -1 degree outside, he didn't return for them. He was seen talking to the same girl outside. As they talked, they crossed College Street, which is now called Fitzgerald Street. By this time, Kyle may have been tipsy because he had spent another hour and a half in the bar after Daniel left. After leaving the bar, street surveillance footage captured Kyle heading toward a nearby pizzeria, Fuel Pizza. He entered the place and ordered 2 slices of pizza with everything. As we know, he didn't have his bank card with him, but he found around $6 in cash in his pocket and paid for the food. The pizzeria cashier claims to have a photographic memory and remembers Kyle from that night. He stated that the customer seemed tipsy. However, the cashier didn't notice when the young man left the restaurant. This is where the story starts to get strange. After the young man left the pizzeria, none of the city's surveillance cameras managed to capture his actions. However, it is known that he began making strange phone calls. He made about 8 calls, the first at 2:42 a.m. and the last at 3:29 a.m. This means he was calling for about an hour. There would be nothing strange about Kyle trying to reach someone, but he was not calling just one person. He called several: his sister Daniel, his roommate, and even dialed his father's work phone, knowing full well that no one would be in the office at that hour. Interestingly, the calls were unusually short, lasting about 10 seconds each, meaning the phone could have only rung twice before no one had time to answer, especially at such a late hour. Obviously, Kyle didn't get through to anyone and didn't leave any voicemail messages. No one knows why he made these frantic calls for an hour. Maybe he knew his phone was dying and didn't wait too long for someone to pick up? Or was he scared of something and wanted someone to help him? The next morning, Kyle's sister, roommate, and father woke up to see the missed calls but weren't concerned, thinking the phone had accidentally dialed in Kyle's pocket. However, when Daniel saw not only the missed calls, but also Kyle's car still parked in his driveway, he realized something was wrong. Daniel tried calling Kyle back, but the call went straight to voicemail. He became worried and called Kyle's roommate to see if he had come home. Finding out he hadn't, Daniel called Kyle's mom and the police to report his friend missing. That same morning, he created the first-ever Facebook page informing people about a missing person. By noon, nearly 50,000 people had joined the group and started sharing photos and information about Kyle Fleischmann's disappearance. Thanks to the Facebook page, hundreds of people gathered to start searching for the missing young man. Meanwhile, the police spoke with the pizzeria cashier. When Kyle's father heard that his son had ordered a pizza with all the toppings, he was convinced it was his son. The father explained that Kyle always orders his pizza this way because he loves a variety of toppings. The cashier noted that the young man had come in alone, but he didn't see him leave. The police also talked to bar patrons and taxi drivers in the area. They logically concluded that Kyle was calling everyone because he was looking for someone to give him a ride home. And it's quite possible he encountered a taxi driver. One taxi driver told a private detective, hired by Kyle's parents, that he had seen a young man matching Kyle's description walking along North Davidson Street near the 1100 block early that morning. The driver found it strange because it was cold outside, and the young man was lightly dressed. Moreover, a respectable-looking young man had no reason to be in such a place. The driver added that the young man seemed disoriented, but he still didn't stop to help him and let him walk on. But walk where? Kyle leaves the bar, buys pizza. All of this seems logical, but why then did he head to North Davidson Street? The fact is, this part of the city, and especially this street, is considered an incredibly dangerous area. Kyle, being a local resident, certainly knew it was a scary place and would never have voluntarily gone there alone at night. Perhaps the taxi driver was mistaken. Law enforcement tracked the phone's ping and made a startling discovery. The phone remained active until 4 a.m. when it was presumably turned off or its battery died. During this time, it left a digital trail from Fuel Pizza to the previously mentioned North Davidson Street. The last phone ping was recorded just 30 centimeters from the bridge leading into Cordelia Park, known for its very bad guys, including members of the violent street gang MS-13. The park is about 3 kilometers from Buckhead's saloon, meaning Kyle had to walk 40 minutes without a jacket in freezing temperatures. After this, Kyle was never seen again. There was no activity on his bank accounts or cards, and his phone was never turned on again. The police brought in 2 tracking dogs. They were given Kyle's jacket, which he had worn that day and left in the bar, to catch his scent. To ensure accuracy, the dogs were sent out separately. Both dogs led their handlers to Fuel Pizza, after which, for some inexplicable reason, both made a large circle around it. Judging by Kyle's behavior, it seems he thought someone was following him and tried to throw them off his trail. After this strange loop, the dogs led the handler down North Davidson Street to Cordelia Park, but their work had to be stopped. The handlers and dogs were called off because it was too dangerous to be in the park at night, both for the animals and the people. The next day, handler Linda Dunn took the dogs back and resumed from where they had left off. The dogs crossed the park and tracked Kyle's scent to a construction site about 200 meters away. Linda reported that as they approached the site, they noticed the smell of decomposition. She said the odor was very strong and she was unsure if it was from an animal or a person. They tried to locate the source of the smell but were unsuccessful. Local residents later also complained about the foul odor, but nothing was done about it. Both of Linda's dogs followed the same path independently, and more dogs were brought in to help search the large area of the construction site, but nothing was found. At that time, there was a lot of freshly dug soil because workers were digging trenches for pipes. Construction of new houses was ongoing back then, and now it's a whole neighborhood. When the neighborhood construction was completed, it likely buried any evidence that could have helped solve the mystery of Kyle's disappearance. But the discoveries by the handlers didn't end there. Linda's partner mentioned encountering a homeless man on North Davidson Street who was willing to talk. People living on the street don't usually like talking to the police, but handlers are a different story. The man said he saw gang members in the park attack Kyle that night. However, he didn't know what happened to Kyle's body afterward. In 2009, a federal judge issued a search warrant for the construction site at 16th and North Davidson Street. The area was searched, but what was found remains unknown. This is because the judge sealed the documents, restricting public access. Documents cannot be sealed based on mere assumptions and theories. It is evident that law enforcement discovered something extremely significant. Additionally, agents from the ATF, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives were involved in the investigation. Their involvement typically indicates cases involving contraband, gangs, or violent crimes involving firearms. FBI agents also worked on the case and similarly sealed the investigation's findings. This decision suggests that they uncovered new evidence critical to the case or identified a key witness. Kyle's family and friends feel that he found his final resting place at that construction site. All they want is to know exactly what happened to him and to say goodbye in the way he deserves. Kyle's father believes his son fell victim to a random robbery. He is still actively searching and assisting the police and private detectives. The Facebook page created by Daniel remains active, where people can express their support for everyone who knew Kyle. The case is considered open, and it has been announced that anyone who provides information leading to Kyle's whereabouts or helps solve the case will receive a $50,000 reward. There are several theories that have emerged around this case. The most popular theory is that Kyle, without realizing it, entered the park and was intercepted by gang members. This is not such an incredible version. However, it raises doubts about the actions of the gang members, who would unlikely have been concerned with thoroughly hiding the young man's body. They had no reason to do so. The second popular theory is similar to the first, suggesting a random robbery that ended extremely badly. Perhaps someone saw Kyle leaving the bar and decided it was an opportunity to get some money. When they found out he had no money, they either got angry or Kyle might have started to fight back. However, many do not believe a gang was involved and suggest he might have fallen into the water, which is very dangerous in his condition. But this is also debatable because nothing was found in the water near where he disappeared. Of course, there is also the theory of voluntary disappearance, but it is hard for people who knew Kyle to believe this because it was completely out of his character. He had no financial difficulties or complicated personal relationships, and he was determined to support his mother through her treatment. The question arose as to whether Kyle's argument with the men in the bar had resolved. Others wondered why Kyle went down North Davidson Street on a cold November night without a jacket. The detective hired by Kyle's parents believes the young man left his belongings in the bar in a hurry. He claims that the surveillance camera captured the girl Kyle was talking to leaving the bar first, followed by Kyle himself. They were then seen talking on the street again. As for Kyle's parents and friends, they are convinced the construction site became Kyle's final resting place. But they are frustrated that nothing can be proven. After all these years, there is no evidence, no witnesses, and no Kyle. Only many questions and an unending heartache. Barbara admits that time has helped dull the pain. It's true what they say about time, she says. I prefer to think about the happy moments. Her husband, Dick, found it harder. He says it's difficult for him to focus on anything positive because he was so involved in the search, always thinking about what they might have missed. Despite the time that has passed, the case still resonates with many people. A young, handsome guy from a decent family, a university graduate, hardworking, and a loving son. It could have been anyone. He's the boy next door, says Detective John Tuttle. Today, Kyle Fleischmann would be 37 years old. Not a day goes by that I don't think of him, says his father, Dick. And Barbara admits she fantasizes about what her eldest son's life would be like now. I think about what he would be doing. I see his friends getting married and having children, and I imagine he would have a family too, and it would be wonderful.